Hello, this is Deborah Hammer for A Brighter Day and Hope for Tomorrow. Welcome to our show. And Marilyn.
Hi, and this is Marilyn Fialco Chadnick, MSW, Health and Mental Health. Welcome to A Brighter Day, our TV version.
We want to welcome Mark Deiro, who is our special guest today, and we also have Becky Cameron, who's going to appear on our show later. Becky is a very remarkable person who has been working with hospice for quite a long time and is a chaplain, and she now has a grief counseling group that she started in Stockton. So, Mark, we welcome you first, and thank you again for joining us. We want to talk about your son, Dominic Deiro. We know you lost your son tragically in an automobile accident last December 23rd, and we want to talk about Dominic and honor him today. He was a former Delta College student, and you are too. So you have strong ties to Delta. So please let us know more about Dominic.
Thank you, Deborah. Well, Dominic was a special person. He was, an individual whose presence was just abounded wherever he went. Dominic was attending Delta College I think he was on his third year. He was about ready to graduate and go on to a four-year school. But tragically, during the winter of last year, we had obviously a mishap, and but Dominic was very special to us. He was very close to his friends. He cherished them. He would do anything for his friends, and a couple adjectives that described Dominic was he was very responsible for his actions and also accountable. And since his death, we've started a organization called Dominic's Designated Driver, and I could expound on that a little later.
We know too that it's very difficult and challenging for you, as Marilyn would agree, to be an advocate right now. How do you find the strength to go on and do this? What inspired you, motivated you to go out and go public at a time when you're still grieving?
Well, I think it's we know that the drinking and driving is a serious problem nowadays, and if we could get the message out that it could lead to breakups and tragedies such as we experienced. And if we can just save one person's life, we feel that our objective has been met. But Dominic's mother and sister are very close to this foundation as well, and they are pushing hard to get the message out as well that drinking and driving is not tolerated and can suffer extreme consequences if you do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, maybe you could show us those orange armbands that you have, or wristbands as you would call them, and tell us why they're orange and what they say on it.
They're the Dominic Designated Driver wristbands. They're official. The restaurants and many businesses around Stockton and the whole San Joaquin County, am I correct, Mark, are now honoring these wristbands as the person wearing them is the designated driver. They promise not to drink the evening that they go out.
That's correct.
And so when they're wearing them, they're recognized in local restaurants. We know that MAD and law enforcement agencies are also advocating this program. Now, when did you start that and make those bracelets?
We started the program in January of this year, and the first bracelets to come out were the memorial ones, and this is what I'm wearing right now, and it says Dominic Markham Deiro, always in our hearts. And the reason, because of the color, is Dominic's a huge San Francisco Giants fan, and this particular bracelet brought on some more ideas of how we can bring this out to the public. Somebody can wear one of these and identify themselves as a designated driver, and that's when we began the foundation called Dominic's Designated Driver. And what it entails is we go into bars and restaurants and provide them with a bucket that I've got here with wristbands, and on the wristband it says, "I am a Dominic's designated driver." And what the restaurant and bar has agreed to do is that they will offer certain perks to the individual wearing the wristband, be it an appetizer, non-alcoholic drink. If there's a fee to get into the facility, they would waive the fee. We have many restaurants and bars in Stockton, Lodi, Modesto, San Diego's coming on board, and Scottsdale, Arizona.
So this has traveled pretty far, your idea, and you said before also that it was Dominic himself that inspired you to do it.
Dominic had a lot to do with this. His sister Mia was the actually individual who thought about this idea, it being branched out from our memorial wristbands, and it was her feeling to try to make sure that other families don't go through a tragedy that we're going through right now.
Right, right. So, did we get a bracelet?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And it's
Mark.
Mark's memory, and we honor that memory today. I am a Dominic designated driver.
So
It's a great looking bracelet, Mark. And this is inspired by his love for the San Francisco Giants, correct?
Absolutely right.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much for the gift and for bringing them on today. And which restaurants in particular in Stockton did you say are using these wristbands right now?
There's a lot in the Lincoln Center. Papa Pablo's is probably one of our biggest advocates. I mean, you could go in there and wear one of these and almost come out with a full meal and drinks. But Dominic used to frequent a lot of the restaurants and bars up and down the Miracle Mile on Pacific Avenue. So we're very heavy in that area. And just recently, Modesto has had issues with CHP in breaking down or coming down on them for DUI. So for the last 2 years, they have been looking for a program to implement to alleviate the amount of DUIs. So they went on Facebook, found out who we were, contacted us. We did a sales presentation, and many of the bars and restaurants in the downtown Modesto area now have our wristbands and our kits.
That's wonderful. And we also want to mention Dominic's tremendous writing skills. The professor here in the audience today at Delta College who knows about this in particular, and we'll welcome suggestions and comments from him later on about Dominic's writing and about this topic as well. That he was published for writing a special essay about the DREAM Act. He was all for it, and it was published first in Delta Winds magazine. Am I right, Mark?
That's correct.
yes, and I wanted to say a special comment about that. I had worked extremely hard to fight for the DREAM Act, which allows children of immigrants who've gone to school and high school to continue their education here and not be sent back to their country. I fought many, many petitions, and I was so touched and moved that your son, not being in that situation himself, was so involved and wrote such a beautiful article that wants to be published, that's going to be published in a textbook. And when I was reading, I read this in the Collegian, and when I finished the whole article, I actually had tears in my eyes, which is very rare for me. And it was the first time I read the Collegian, and I had tears in my eyes when I read the story. And it was just so inspiring, and it was painful because I have a daughter that age. Turned 18, was going to college, and I just couldn't imagine that happening to me. And I know you've gone through some serious grieving, and I am so proud that you are doing something positive in the community, having suffered this.
Well, I know if you go to the Delta College website, you can go online and look at it and read it. And we were awfully pleased and blessed to know that Dominic's paper was published. It just goes to show you how much compassion he had as an individual, how he cared for people.
That's right.
When he grew up, he was very introverted, and little did I know that he had this passion inside of him and how he felt about human beings. And once again, this just goes to show you how he looked at individuals, people, friends, and for him to do this, and believe me, he did not boast about this one bit. He did not. He does not have an ego, and
Yes,
we're just so happy.
Yes, I had read about how humble he was, and I think that was part of the tears,
Yes.
that he was very humble and didn't take credit for things and just did things to help people for the sake of it.
He had silent presence, and but yet that presence was loudly heard.
Yes, and you said he's here today in spirit, and you always feel that, and that helps, I know. And this way is probably your way of honoring Dominic. We want to show his picture. For sure you brought it along with you. Please hold up for the camera. This is Dominic Deiro. We're honoring today a former Delta College student. We want to invite people to comment about Dominic, those who knew him. I know one of the professors is out here who did know Dominic in a way through the publication of Delta Winds magazine and the essay. So this was Dominic Deiro. He's still with us in spirit, and his father loves him so much. And for him, he's still here. And as all loved ones are in memory, and through this wonderful foundation that you started. We thank you so much. Do you want to read the mission statement briefly, Mark, about the foundation before we talk about hospice and talk to Becky Cameron?
What I wanted to do was we have an official mission statement kind of describing Dominic and the event, and also what we're trying to do to prevent this to happen to any other individuals. Our slogan is Orange Band, Keys in Hand, which is very appropriate. And our mission statement begins, on December 23rd, 2011, our beloved Dominic Deiro was tragically killed from injuries suffered as a passenger in a solo vehicle drunk driving accident. Drunk driving accidents are becoming more common each year and every day, and almost every person either has or knows someone who has driven under the influence. In fact, according to MAD, an average drunk driver has driven 80 times before their first arrest. Driving under the influence is also highly prevalent in younger adults. The group with the highest percentage of drunk drivers involved in fatal car crashes is the 25 to 34 age group. These statistics are alarming. However, they could be prevented altogether with the help of designated drivers and programs that support the choice of becoming a DD. In light of Dominic's death, our family has created Dominic's Designated Driver, a nonprofit organization committed to raising awareness about the consequences of drinking and driving. In doing so, we are sharing Dominic's story as we seek to reward individuals who make the choice in becoming a designated driver. Through our program, the designated driver of a group wears an orange and black wristband with the words, "I am a Dominic Designated Driver," imprinted on it, indicating that they are sober driver that night. We have enlisted numerous bars, clubs, and restaurants throughout the Stockton and surrounding area to honor these participants with certain perks such as free cover admission, free non-alcoholic beverages, and free food. With DDD's mission to save lives, we believe that our program will keep drunk drivers off the road through educating and inspiring all age groups to utilize a designated driver. Dominic's Designated Driver is officially recognized by the Stockton Police Department, the San Joaquin County Sheriffs, California Highway Patrol, Stockton Mayor Ann Johnston, and California State Automobile Association. I should add to that, MAD. If you would like to learn more about this program, including a complete list of the participating bars and restaurants, or if you wish to make a donation for our cause, please visit our website at www.dominicdesignateddriver.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And now we want to turn our attention to the audience, people out there who would have joined us. Would you like to make a comment about Dominic Deiro? I know that one of the professors who was with Delta Winds Magazine, is here. And now we have Robert Beanie here. He's a professor here at Delta College. He talked to Dominic about his essay being published in a national textbook that was first published in a magazine here at Delta College, Delta Winds Magazine. Tell us a bit more about that, and when you talked to Dominic Deiro, how excited he was about being published in this national textbook as well.
Yeah, I'm co-editor of Delta Winds. It's a magazine of student essays here at Delta. It comes out once a year. And Dominic wrote the essay in a 79 mastery exam. So he wrote it in 80 minutes, and we English instructors get together and read these essays, and we thought it was really good. Willa Gopswick and I were the two co-editors of the magazine, so we contacted Dominic and asked him if he'd be all right if we published it, and he thought it was okay, so he provided us with a photo and a bio and stuff. Then we loaded on the internet on an online site, and then Beth Castrodale, she's a publisher's representative for St. Martin's, Bedford St. Martin's Books. She wanted to publish it in a book, so she did, and so that's out this month.
Well, thank you. And do you have any thoughts or comments about what happened with Dominic? We invite the audience to participate today, and thank you for being part of that audience. Any thoughts or comments you'd like to make about this foundation in his memory, and about the topic? Use that microphone, and just a comment because you are an audience participant. And we appreciate your coming down.
Well, last semester Mia came to class and did a presentation, and a beautiful job. And everybody who hears this story talks about how strong the family is to do this, and everybody's very touched.
Thank you so much for joining us, part of our audience and part of our show now, and we appreciate your coming down. And now we have our special guest, Becky Cameron, who's just joined us. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And welcome to a brighter day.
Right, bright and hope for tomorrow. This show is all about people making a difference in the community and often making a positive impact on our society and our community in spite of losses and difficulties. We want to talk to you a little bit, Becky, about the grief process, but first of all, know a little bit more about you.
I worked as the hospital chaplain down in Tracy for 16 years and worked with their hospice program as well. I've lived here in Stockton off and on for 30 years, about 10 years so far this time. And I enjoy working with people.
So as a hospice worker, what was often the most difficult thing about being around that kind of environment, Becky?
Probably the greatest challenge is just watching people struggle. In a hospice setting, you're dealing with a lot of the anticipatory grief as people begin to grieve the loss of their loved one while their loved one is still with them. And that's a very difficult phase of the grief process, and watching them go through that, and then trying to help them find the support they need after their loved one has died, and going through that whole process can be challenging sometimes.
And another question relating to this with Mark Deiro, does the pain ever really go away? How do they overcome that? What do you tell people?
The best description I've ever heard of it from a speaker at a grief conference, that he said, you never get over a loss, but you learn to relate to your loved one in a new way. That they are no longer with you physically, and you have to learn to communicate with them, to remember them, in spite of that absence. We interact with people with our five senses, and we don't realize how often we depend on being able to see someone and hear them and touch them. And when that part of their presence is gone, we have to learn to relate to them in a new way and accept that loss as part of the experience of our life, part of the fabric of our life that will always be with us. The person will be with us, and the experience of their loss will be with us, but it will change.
That is so wonderfully put, Becky. I myself worked about 15 years in a palliative care unit, I was telling you, and people had around 3 months to live, and I had to deal with the families and the patients. And that is just so wonderfully put. And I noticed that when we had groups, relative groups who were anticipating loss, or actually they had the loss, they related very well to one another, and they understood each other's pain and what they were going through. And we were just facilitators, but they really bonded together because they knew what the suffering was like. We often found that for spouses, and it would take around 2 years until the initial pain went away. But they say for children, it lasts forever, and using their name is like music to the parents' ears. Sometimes people don't want to talk to the parents about a child's loss or a young person's loss, but they like to hear the name. And
That's this tree ceremony lighting is all about, too. Why hospice decided to do this. How far back does that go? Do you know, Becky?
I don't know how far back this particular one goes, but I know most hospice programs do some kind of event on at least an annual basis to remember people. What you just said, Marilyn, reminded me of a woman I met one time who had lost her young adult daughter, and she said she went back to work, and one of her coworkers came up to her and said, "Introduce me to your daughter." And she said at first she was kind of taken aback by that, but then she realized what a beautiful opportunity that was for her, and how much it strengthened her to be able to introduce her daughter to this woman, and to help the woman understand what a wonderful person her daughter was.
that is such an inspirational comment. I think you've probably gone through the gamut and seen many, many inspirational things, and that is certainly very poignant.
Anything memorable you'd like to share with us, Becky, on that topic? It's not meant to be morbid, but anything you, besides Mark, who's a great inspiration to us, people overcoming the loss in very positive ways, the way Mark Deiro has?
I think what Mark has done is the best example I've seen of somebody taking a tragedy and finding good out of it. It doesn't make it any less tragic, but it enables, in this case, Dominic to live on and impact this world in a very substantial way. You know, Mark will never know how many lives are saved or how many injuries prevented by this organization. And I think anytime we lose someone, if we can find something like this, some way of carrying on their influence so that they continue to live on in a very real way, very concrete way, it accomplishes so much, not only for their memory, but for our sense of loss.
So you have a grief support group you just started here in Stockton. It's on Wednesdays at the Methodist Church in the Fireside Room. You want to give the hours and time?
Yeah, from 1:30 to 3 on Wednesdays over here at Central United Methodist Church. This support group is an open-ended thing. A lot of grief groups are specific recovery type groups. They are intended to go 6 or 8 weeks, and you go in kind of with an objective of what you're going to do with your grief in that time. This is an open grief support group. Marilyn mentioned how other grievers can help new people who are going through the experience. I led a grief group for years down in Tracy, and it always fascinated me to watch the people in the group when a new person walked in the door. Even if the existing group had been there for months, and maybe that day we were mainly just making small talk, but a new person who was hurting walked in that door, and everybody, without so much as a skip of a heartbeat, they focused on that new person, helped them to be able to share, identified with their loss, and just strengthened each other.
I want to welcome back Mark Deiro, who just joined us again as we end this program. Mark, any questions you want to ask Becky Cameron, the hospice worker chaplain?
I listened to what Becky said, and my wife and I did go through a couples grieving counseling through hospice, and we found that it was so informative, and things that we could take from it to work on how we grieved every day. There was one statement that I took away from that counseling session that will always stay in my mind, and that's you don't get over it, you have to go through it. And every day I am faced with different emotions, crying, laughing, whatever they are, and it's just a matter of getting a hold of them. And when I get down, I pray for strength, and thank God that I have that relationship. And I just thought that it was one of the best things my wife and I could have done, and would strongly encourage anybody who's gone through a crisis or a tragedy like this to seek professional help. I carry with me my son, whose name was Dominic, a St. Dominic card, and there's a paragraph on here that just typifies what Dominic was while he was here, but in my mind, he's still here with me. It says here, on earth, you open your heart to the miseries of your fellow men, and your hands were strong to help them. Now in heaven, your charity has not grown less, nor has your power waned. So I read that, and it gives me strength, and I know that Dominic is with us in spirit all the time.
We thank you for joining us. Once again, I thank Mark Deiro and Becky Cameron for joining us on this special TV version of A Brighter Day in Hope for Tomorrow. And thank you, audience, for participating, and also viewers. Thank you, and have a great week.